2, 1.5. We are live on a link that was not promoted. So thank you all for finding it. Well, thank you, Tony Prince up there on the top, Debbie Caldwell on the bottom, Joey Gibbs. Joey, is it sunny up there in Ventura or what? What's
Oh
up?
no, it's June gloom for October.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering why you had sunglasses on.
Oh, they're my cheaters.
Oh, you're cheaters? Oh, okay. All right. Well, as those of you know, we are here for Tom Morey today, and it's been an actual year since he left us. And in some cases, it's been a good year, and in other cases, it's been kind of sad. So we got Marsha Morey coming on, some of the family coming on, but right now, let's talk to Tony. Let's talk to everybody that comes in to kind of reminisce a little bit. Okay, Tony, I'm going to ask you first.
Go for it.
If something comes to your mind in the 45 years plus that you've been into the sport of boogie boarding / bodyboarding, what would be the most memorable moment you remember right now?
I would say, even though it was one of the longest things ago, I would say it was watching Joey Gibbs go out at Waimea in December of 1977 on a kit board, and I was just like shaking on the beach with my camera, just even shooting pictures of him. I think I was trembling, and I was thinking, gosh, they're gonna make me have to go out in this, and I'm just gonna be freaking out. And then after we had the contest at Haleiwa, which I didn't do very well in, then I'm like, gosh, this just bums me. So I went out at Clausmeyer's or whatever that place was that was next door. And I remember paddling out about 3/4 of a mile, and it just kept seeming like the waves were breaking out further and further. And I started getting really afraid that I was just going to get cleaned up and lose my board, and I would be like a mile out or get sucked out to sea. And all of a sudden, here comes Joey Gibbs paddling over, and he goes, I thought you looked worried out here. Here, I'll show you where you have to take off from. And so he got me like safely back to shore. So that totally got stuck in my mind. And that was from December of 1977.
Is that because you saw him right below you there? That's why you just,
No, but that,
Yeah,
no,
you want to make my head bigger.
Yeah, I just want to make
that was just one of that was like shock. To go from T Street to watching people out at Waimea Bay was the most shock that ever. And then to see that that it wasn't, the board wasn't stopping anybody from riding Waimea Bay, it was their courage.
Yeah.
Really, that's what it was. It's like the board isn't the problem, it's you. Look in the mirror. It's you.
Yeah. In Spanish,
you're the chicken.
Tiene huevitos. In Spanish, they call it tiene huevitos. Anyway,
I can imagine what that means.
Okay.
Yeah, but Tony, you were all of about 98 pounds wet at the time, right?
Oh
yeah,
gosh.
yeah. And I did go out when we went over to Makaha. I went out and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. With the water is so warm and the waves have so much power, and I just needed it to be something that I felt like I could, be out there and be safe with. And since it was my first time in Hawaii, it was scary because I just had never been around waves that were like that size. Yeah. I mean, I see why when people grow up there, it's no biggie, because after you've gone there and been there a whole bunch of times, then you have the feel of it. But the very first time when you're coming from the mainland, I think a lot of people would be surprised.
Hey, Tony, the day you're talking about at Waimea was the morning after we arrived in Hawaii.
Right.
We flew in, and the next morning we looked outside from behind the house we were staying in, and it was giant. And Tom's like, nobody's going to go out here. We got to go to Waimea.
Right. I remember in the middle of the night, I think we were in sleeping bags on the floor, and Joey was right next to me, and all of a sudden the floor was trembling, and we woke up at around 3 or 4 in the morning, and Joey said, "Do you hear that bass? Do you feel that bass? That means it's really big, Tony. It's really big." And I'm like, okay. And with that, I'll go back to sleep, just in fear. And then we woke up and it was really big, huh, Joe?
Oh God, it was. Yeah, we were staying right on the beach there by the old airport, and God, the waves out front were at least 12 to 15 foot.
Wow.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. I meant to ask you, Joy, and we'll come back to you again, Tony. But since it is Tom Morey Day, and he did invent the boogie board, and that's a great memory, boogie boarding. But let's think of a memory with Tom. We've all been around Tom. There's going to be other people coming in. I just got a message from Soul and the family. They're coming in. Marsha's on the way. So before they get here, what is probably one of the greatest memories you can remember, Joey, about Tom?
Oh, geez.
I know. Debbie, you be thinking of one, okay?
I have one. If
Okay,
go for it, Deb.
So he got a proclamation from the city of Oceanside, and Pat and I, she knows what this one's about. We went to it, and it was kind of cool. I mean, he mentioned me in his speech, which I thought was very. I was honored by that. But we went afterwards out to dinner, and Marcia, Pat, Tom, and myself. And it was one of those nights where you just got it. The conversation was so awesome. The food was awesome. It just doesn't get any better. You think of it afterwards and go, that's a great dinner. That was nice. Well, Tom, in the proclamation, they said all these things about Tom, what college he went to, blah, blah, blah. And we're talking to Tom at dinner, and we said, Tom, how'd they find out about all that stuff from you? We didn't even know what college you went to. And he goes, oh, yeah, I don't know how they found it out. And then he started talking about his college days. So he talked about when he was pledging at a fraternity, and he said, this is kind of off color. I hope I could say it, but he was saying that they put all the people in row. There was about 20 guys, and they're all pledging by the size of their you-know-what. So they were put in line by the size of their you-know-what. And then Tom looked at us and said, I'm not telling you where I stood in line. See, so we go, oh, come on, Tom, tell us. We can put it in your bio where you were in line. And he's laughing his head off. And I remember thinking this was so nice. I got Tom the crack up, and, he passed a week later, so I'm glad I got to spend that time with him. It was really fun, good laughs. So that's my memory.
Wow. And that was like a week before he passed on?
Yes. The proclamation, right, Pat?
Yeah, that was the proclamation. That was in October. That's right.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. That's a cool story.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and then there was this guy in the place that I knew, that bodyboard, and I go, that's Tom Morey, and he went, whoa, he's so excited, got his picture. So it was quite a thrill to meet. Bodyboards thinks it's really cool to meet the inventor. And
Totally.
so it was fun night, fun evening. I'm glad I got to spend that, make Tom laugh, a week before. He passed.
So my thoughts are, this is the day that Tom passed on to where he was going to.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, today? Yeah.
Today's the day he passed on.
Right. Yep. And it was so, I guess it's my turn. Soul just came in and then he left. So I don't know what's going on, but he'll be back.
Okay.
So many links out there. It's going to cause some confusion, I know, but that's okay, because we can only have 10 in here at a time. So it'll be cool. Anyway, I think,
If I get a different color.
Talk to somebody every day for a year, 2 hours every morning, and you're going to have some pretty interesting little conversations. That whole year of the Jubilee was just, but I think that when after he passed, public, what is it, PBS called and wanted an interview about Tom and some information about Tom, but they didn't want it to be like CNN was doing and all the other stations. They wanted an interview with something real, they knew that I was close to him. I said, well, the only thing I can think of is every time we would talk and he would learn something from me, which is kind of hard because he was pretty smart. He would go, so I went, okay. And then she goes, okay, well, all right. And so I tell her about little things and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I get this call at 12 o'clock noon, and it's Washington calling in from Hawaii. And he goes, I'm driving my car and I'm listening to PBS right now, and it's an interview with you about Tom. I go, oh, that dirty rat. She thought she was taking information from me, but she was making the interview with me. And I was saying all this like stupid stuff, like he plays the ukulele and all that, and go out with the ukulele, and I'm telling her how to do this thing, and I'm on the radio. Anyway, Tom would have loved that, because he give him a microphone and guaranteed he would want to speak. Well, he did that at the proclamation. Remember, Deb? He kept saying, there, when am I on? When am I on? You know, she goes, okay, Tom, just a minute, you know, just a minute. And like every time I was going to record him, he would, okay, I'm ready. And I go, oh no, I got to call you back. I got to get everything set up. And my last conversation with him on October 12th, 11th, actually, Monday the 11th, I saved it. I said, Tom, he goes, what's next, Patty? What's next? I go, well, we're going to the Silver Surfer Award. You know, they're giving you a big deal down there at the Surf Museum. It's Silver Streak Award or something like that. It's like the biggest thing you can get in surfing. He goes, oh, yeah. I said, I want to record some more stuff, because like I want to save this all in a little capsule of all these recordings I have of you. And he goes, okay, well, right now, are you recording right now? And I go, no, I gotta get everything set up. I'll call you back. Well, guess what? I got busy that day and I didn't call him back. That's one of my biggest regrets, that here's Tom's waiting for me to record. And that would have been his last interview, because he died or he, fell the next day. But that's okay, because we have so many of them I'm going to put up on that are you've never heard them before, interviews with him. And those are all going to go up this week. So I'm just trying to track them all down. Anyway, there's people saying, hi, everyone. Hope everyone is well. Someone, a Facebook user, saying hello. What's this one say? Can't wait to see you all soon. Oh, okay. Well, put your name when you type, because we all we see is that you're on Facebook. So if you just put hyphen your name, that would be great, because it goes to the recording. We'd love to know you're here. Now, Tony, did you think of anything about Tom while we were waiting, or while we were talking?
Well, I mean, he was, of course, the lead person on that trip that I was talking about with Joey. And I thought that when Joey was out there riding on his kitboard, I thought Tom took one of the Doyles out or something, was going to try to ride Waimea on the Doyle. So that was both of those things happening. But I remember how just like starstruck I was to be, first off, invited to go on a trip with Tom, since almost everybody else other than me and Dale Dobson was like an employee of the company.
Oh, that's right.
And so I just felt like a total insider there, and like part of, I was privileged enough to be part of Tom's inner circle for that time period. So I got to, you guys had all worked with him, so you're used to like talking to him all the time. But for me, I had never talked to him up until that time of that trip.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't even know that I ever even saw him up until that time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I don't remember you guys. Joey, you said something about that once too. I remember him coming in once in a while to the office, but I was out on the road a lot, so I didn't see him. But yeah, I don't remember him like hanging out that much. Do you, Deb?
No, he didn't come in a lot. I saw him quite a few times, but he didn't come in every day. Right, Joey?
At the beginning, he was there every day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at the beginning at Oak Street, when I first started there, he had a desk set up right inside of the front door.
That's right.
And he was there every day.
That's different. I was talking about Roosevelt. Yeah. No, on there at that office, me and Louise and Doyle and everybody was in that office, remember?
Right.
We were all one.
And Tom did not have his own office. He had his desk right in the the entry of the door of the place, and you had to walk by Tom to go in.
Right. Let me say hi to Tyrone Perez. Everybody that knows him, wave. And Tyrone, Deb.
Yeah, I was just texting Tyrone earlier.
Yeah, there's Alejandro, and he's saying OG Morey crew. Good to see you. I'm honored
Go
to
on,
meet
guys.
you, Pam. Just blessed to have the honor. Oh, well, put your name in there so we know who we can say hi to. But yeah, that office. I mean, I can remember it like it was yesterday because I was like Tony. I was like this little, groupie girl that here comes Mike Doyle. Oh my God, and I'm answering the phones. Tom's hearing me. This is how I got in sales. I was answering the phones for the surf shops, and he's going, "You need to go out on the road, girl. You're good on that. Get out on the road." And that's actually, I hated sales. I told Tom, I hate sales. I do not want to be in sales. And, don't make me go out on the road. And I never got to stay in that office very long because he had me in that little boogie van hitting all these surf shops that were kicking me out. Because in those days, see, the people don't know the history. People never seen a boogie board before. They didn't want the surfers didn't want those sponges out in the ocean. So he sends me out to go sell up to the surf shops. Hello.
Well, I think I've said this before, but Joey Gibbs actually was teaching me how to trim a bodyboard.
Ooh.
I don't know if you remember, it was the L200 skin, and I had to trim the one rail, and I'm like, what am I doing? I have no clue, but I'll try it. Yeah, I ended up doing pretty well, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you did.
Yeah, slightly.
Well,
yeah, it was amazing how much how much craftsmanship went into those boards.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody knew how to make a boogie board. There was no machinery to make it. It was all handmade craftsmanship, and everyone had to learn their own little part of how they, you were a laminator, or you put on the a heat gun, and you put on the rails, and you had different jobs, and you would perfect that skill, and then after you perfected it, then you could move on to another part of being in the factory. But it was all very, very much hands-on craftsmanship.
Yeah. We learned to iron the nose on the foam. You actually took an iron, like for clothes, to iron the nose.
It was a Teflon coated iron.
What's that?
It was a Teflon coated iron, so
right.
Stick to it.
And I think you were teaching me how to do that too. And I later used that when I worked for Doyle, Morey Boogie. We were sanding surfboards, and we would touch it up by using the iron. So thanks for that, Joey.
Yeah, after all these years, you never knew, did you, Joey?
Uh-huh.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you were talking about memories of Tom. I have a memory when I lived with Tom and Marcia and the kids in Hawaii. That was kind of an interesting story.
That's
and
good.
That Tom, not only was he a great speaker, but he was an incredible listener.
Yes.
And he knew how to dig little bits and pieces out of people and then have them go with it. He would ask a simple little question and then have them go with it.
Right.
And one time when I lived with Tom, we were in a house up on the hill above Kona, and this scientist guy who worked at the astronomy observations up on top of the mountain there at what is it?
Mauna Kea?
Mauna Kea, yeah. The scientist astro what?
The astronomer?
Yeah, he was an astronomer. Anyway, he worked up there and he lived up there, and he came to the door and he was looking for the people that lived there before. And he came to the door and he says, "Oh, I'm looking for so-and-so." And Tom's like, "Oh, yeah, they lived here before." And Tom's like, you work up at Mauna Kea? And so they got to talking, and Tom's asking questions. The guy ended up staying like 2 or 3 days at our house, just visiting.
Wow. And then did he take you up to the observatory?
Tom was like, "I want to know everything I can get out of this guy."
Yeah, no kidding.
So it was pretty wild. Tom, it's just some stranger that walked to the door, and next thing you know, they just hit it off. And Tom's asking him questions about astronomy and stuff, and they were just going all that evening, and the guy ended up staying like 2 days.
Oh, that's classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely does sound like something, you know, Tom. He was just so positive. You know, it was something I'd noticed about him actually later, you know, when we started working on the Jubilee, like I would start telling him something like, oh my gosh, this is happening, da da da. And he'd go, well, you know, and then he'd always have this comeback, this real, and I noticed it, like I kept going, God, there's not a thing. You can't gossip in front of him. You can't say anything negative about anybody. He really was just really good at that. So that was Tyrone that said, I'm honored to meet the Morey family. Just blessed to have the honor. Yeah.
Tyrone, I hope everything is well in Puerto Rico. I know you guys got hit pretty hard a month ago.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, he's in New Jersey now.
Okay.
But he has relatives in New Jersey or Puerto Rico, and I'm sure he's been through a few hurricanes over there also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, good guy, good guy.
All right, so we all go back to the 70s that are in the room today, which is just such an honor to have you guys here, because you know, we've saw the manufacturing of the kit board and all the stuff you hear on conversations about the history. What do you think was in the history now, 50 years plus, what do you think over all the time was the most I'll just use the word profound. What was the most profound thing that you just went, OMG, you know, whether it was about your life in the boogie or Tom and the boogie or something? Do you have anything, Deb?
The only thing I could think of is, you know, I obviously worked on the first boards, softer bottoms, L200s, and then they started getting this other bottom, and we used to, what they call healing, at least here in the United States, meant laminating the rail to the board. Well, we had to bring it up on the first Pro X, let's see, the red line. And it was so hard to work on those. And then later they came up with a slick bottom. And to me, that was like, okay, that's a game changer. You know, the new Surlyn slick bottoms are pretty cool.
Wait, yeah, that was that was a game changer.
Yeah, it went from the deck material that you see now was on the bottom, and that's all you got. And then they came up with a slick bottom. That was pretty cool. That was a great invention, or whatever you want to call it.
And in addition to the slickness of the bottom and everything, it also stiffened up the board.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Well,
I thought that was a game changer time back then.
You remember anything, Tony? Like what? Like, whoa, God, I've been involved in this sport. That's like, whoa.
I would have to say it was when, in the early 80s, when Keith and Mike came and stayed with me for the summer in San Clemente, and we went down to T Street, and I got to watch, for the first time, I got to watch Keith Sasaki ride, and I was just like, okay, that's a complete game changer, because I had Jack, you had brought Jack over, and he had come and hung out with the Donald's Boogie team. So we went up to like Disneyland together, and you know, we did some Orange County stuff, but you know, he was like, gosh, your waves here have like no power, you know, because he's used to riding everything big. And then Keith came over, and he was like, no, these waves are fine, and he was just absolutely shredding T Street. And I just remember how just epic it was that we would not only go down and surf all day long, but then we would come back, and everyone, you know, from the beach would like wind up back over at our house on Palizada in San Clemente. And then we would just keep, you know, like just reliving the day all night, you know, just in a party format. And then the next day we would just like repeat. Boogie, party, repeat, sleep, repeat, you know, just like over and over again. And I'm like, there is no better life than this. That's this has got to be the high point of life.
Yeah, you got it pretty good down there for sure.
Yeah, that was a summer to remember.
What about you, Joy? Anything profound in your life with the
boogie? Tony kind of reminded me of it, and so you're saying like what in the history of the boogie board really was a game changer to that you thought, wow, this is a whole different, things have changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And I would say it was when we were working at Morey Boogie, and all of a sudden I've always thought it was Tom Boyle sent a letter to Tom Morey with photos of Jack Lindholm at Pipeline doing drop knee.
Yeah.
And we just went, what in the heck is that? Everybody was like, no way. You can do that on a boogie board?
Mm-hmm.
That just blew us away.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a huge game changer for all of us, because we were all riding a boogie board on our stomach, and that was that. You know, some people would ride on their knees sometimes, because there was knee boarders at the time, and there were surfers, and there were boogie boarders, and some people would ride on two knees on a boogie board. I know it's like Scott Evans would do that, and probably Roger Waller and a few would ride on double knees, like it was a knee board type deal.
Yeah.
And the boards, I mean, it is really hard to imagine, because I took my kit board out a while back, and you have no idea how flexible those things were. It was like a carpet. It was just bending and twisting and turning, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe what we did with these things.
Like Ride Waimea.
The magic.
And Jack Lindholm is, and all of a sudden he was riding it with 1 foot up and drop knee, and we're like, wow, that was just totally something that no one had even began to think was what you would do on a boogie board.
Yep. Well, that whole shot, you said Tom Boyle took that shot?
I think he took several shots, and he sent them in a letter to the Morey.
Yeah. Well, that shot, I know Tony and I, when we used to go to, remember we used to take that one carousel, we had one slide, and I think it was that one at Woolworths in the mall. And they let us put on this little demonstration, because I closed Woolworths as a company, and then we got to go to a couple different outlets and show off the board and stuff. That was fun. But that shot was the only, I remember the carousel, and then I also remember that one shot. You kind of triggered something in me, Joey. Tom says you've got to go back to Foot Cone and Belding. It's a big ad agency in Chicago, and it's winter, so dress warm. Well, all I had was Hawaiian shirts and stuff, so I'm out there walking down Michigan Avenue, going to see this ad agency with a boogie board. People are looking at me like crazy, and I have a Hawaiian shirt and sandals on. And I open up the door to Foot Cone and Beld, and I go, holy moly. There's, all these different products that you've heard of in these little glass capsules. I go, I'm somewhere, So I go up into this mahogany boardroom, and I'm up there just like looking like a little California girl. And there's all these guys in suits and executives and everything. So they put the little slide that we know up on the carousel on a screen. And now I have to give my pitch, because we wanted them to do the Sun-Kissed promotion or whatever. And I have to pitch this thing. And they're in the snow in Chicago. They're going, they ride like that? And I go, well, no, that is actually the only slide we have of a guy in Hawaii, but they actually get on their stomach like a raft and ride them. And we can be down on the beach, and we can give out orange soda, and we can, and I'm pitching it. Well, anyway, that slide got us the Sun-Kissed soda promotion at the time, or whatever that, it was that I went to Foot Cone about. So that was a famous one. That ended up on posters too, didn't it, Deb or Joey?
Yeah, that was on the boogie poster that you got with the boogie board.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
and I'd love to interview Jack sometime too, if I could ever track him down. He's kind of like elusive, like Ben Severson was. But we did find Ben for the talking story about Morey right after Tom died last year, and that, I think that one's got the most views of anything I've ever had videoed. People really like him or something. I don't know.
Who was this?
Ben Severson.
Oh gosh, yes, yeah.
He's quite the legend.
Yep, quite the legend.
Oh
okay,
yeah.
We've talked about our profound moments, our Tom Morey moments. Now, what is the funniest moment you ever had with Tom? Think about it.
So that story I told was,
Yeah,
pretty-
that was pretty funny.
yeah,
Mhm.
you know, like
Yeah.
he looked at us all sheepishly and said, "I'm not telling you where I stood in
Yeah, that
line."
is pretty funny.
This
Yeah.
little, it was pretty good. I'll have to say that's one of my better ones.
Well, then you can switch around and did you have a profound moment in your career where you just went, whoa, I'm in this sport that's like huge. Did you ever have any of those moments?
No, because I've been in it so long.
I know.
My profound moments are when I look in the mirror and go, "Oh God, you're like, how old are you?"
I know. We should show that video of Joey, you and me skateboarding out at
Yeah.
go, oh, that's what they look like.
I was a skater. I was a surfer.
Oh.
I was.
Yeah.
Look at that
So-
video and I go, dang, that's
Deb,
nice.
how about this one? Before I was talking about Jack, another one was when we went from that little shop at Oak Street and just, like what, 10 people working at the factory to
Right.
like 100 people working
I
24
know.
hours a day at Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was huge.
Yeah, the trajectory.
That was huge.
When you look at business today on scaling, that was not the equation for scaling at all. I mean, there was about 4 steps missing in there, because
That's why Tom had to sell the business. He couldn't.
Right.
He didn't have. He started with nothing almost, and all of a sudden he had this massive payroll.
Yep.
That where's the money coming from?
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
It's called critical mass in business. If you hit that spot, then you have to really decide, okay, do I quit and just go home because I don't have the money to grow, or do I sell out? And he, took the other method and sold out, or sold the company, not sold out, but sold the company. But he missed a couple steps in there because we grew way too fast, way too fast. But it was fun.
We did.
It was fun being there. I remember Tony Prince was my one of my accounts in San Clemente. He was the Denalt. They said, "Hey, Denalt's is calling. They want some boogie boards." I popped up there. I'll never forget pulling around in the Morey boogie van, and Tony was out on the dock, and it was like this just amazing personality. Like, OMG, look at this guy. He is going to kill it in helping me promote this board. And we went everywhere. Remember, we went to, like I said, Woolworths. I loved his spirit in those days. He was so into boogie boarding.
He still has the same spirit.
Well, he does.
It hasn't never left.
Well, we all do.
Tony.
We all do. We really, we might get gotten older and not get out in the water, but we all do, We all still have that same spirit. And Tom infused it in us. I mean, he taught me stuff about business that I went on my whole career and stuff that he had taught me. And I've asked clients, I go, do you ever remember me bringing up Tom Morey's name? They go all the time. You'd bring up incidences that he taught you. And I went, yeah, I guess you're right. And Tom loved when I told him those stories. He goes, really? And then at that reunion Tony was talking about, I think you got a picture of it you're going to put up. I asked Tom that day, it was about 2015, maybe 2016. I said, can I call you my mentor? Because you mentored me in so many different things. He goes, no, that's not necessary, Patty. I go, no, and I started listing it all off. But this, and you taught me this, and you taught me this, and you taught me this. And I went on to do this in my career. And then I opened a magazine because of publishing that little newsletter at Morey Boogie, learning publishing, learning how to do the tour, the BIA, blah, blah, blah. Then my training, my sales training company. And he goes, oh, yeah, I guess you can call me your mentor. I said, that's all stuff from you, So anyway, do you have that picture, Tony, of us?
Yeah, well, it's the picture that's right behind me up on the wall.
Let me see if I can zoom in. Hold on. Where is Tony? There he is. Let's see if we can bring you up full screen.
There. So Tom's in the middle waving.
Oh, that one. Oh, okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's on a boogie board, in the shape of a boogie board.
Yeah. That is beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's how many people were there at the 50th anniversary at T Street.
What's that?
That's a crowd.
Oh, we had a crowd.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it would have been bigger if it wasn't during a pandemic and there was still that many people.
Oh, God, I know.
And those people were stoked out of their mind to be at that. That's for sure. People of all ages. We're
Well,
just
that video I made of why the 50th anniversary board is such an important board. When I showed that picture of everybody, crowded around Tom on his last
right.
statement, I thought, those people got to be lucky they were there that day. Joey, remember all of us, we were so grateful to just be a part of that, because that was it pretty much for a lot of people. That was the last time they saw him.
Oh yeah.
It was awesome.
But there was a lot of people that was the first and only time they've ever seen Tom too.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people.
Yep. Yeah. And his importance and his, what do you call it?
His aura.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. He was like our guru, he was really, really something.
And people would walk up to him and start talking to him, and for him, he's just like casual with everybody, and the people would just like look at him in the eyes, and all of a sudden they would just bust out crying. These like grown men would just like they would just start to think back at how much fun they've had on the boogie board in their life, and then relate it to, okay, the person I'm looking at right now is, if it wasn't for his mind thinking this up, I would not have had all of those memories. And it was just so overwhelming that they couldn't just stop from the waterfall just coming out of their eyes. And they would start like their voice would start breaking up, and Tom would be like, hey, it's no big deal. I think of a lot of things, that just happened to be one that really took off.
Yeah.
And the people are like, no, it is a big deal because it totally changed my life. And, I was, going down this path that wasn't going to be good. And I got that. And all of a sudden I changed my life around. And it's, really, I could have just been, on the street, homeless or dead from drugs or something, but instead I did this. So it's like, you have no idea how your little idea has changed so many people, and hardly ever across the entire world was it in a negative way. We're talking about millions of people that had a positive experience because of your idea. That's not that many people that can say that happened.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. Even today, I meet people and they say that bodyboarding changed their life,
Well, even at the Surfer Award, which he wasn't able to make, he died about a week before that. They were saying how the people were saying that, bar anything, he got more people out in the water, stoked more people and the surfers are sitting there, they're going, I mean, Tom was a surfer.
Yeah, he brought all those people out in my lineup.
That's right.
Yeah, it's kind of bittersweet, isn't it, Joey?
Right.
The thing that saved him, though, was that he had also invented other surfing products, the fin box and, events.
Right.
He was Carl Pope board, and they knew him from surfing. He just happened to, invent the boogie board, which put his whole name worldwide for many, many years and many years to come, so that was the difference in Tom. I think he probably was most, like you said, everything good said about him, probably the most inspirational of all people in the ocean industry anyway. Who else? Hobie maybe, but
Hobie, yeah.
But I don't know, anybody else.
And maybe Grubby Clark of the Clark Foam, but yeah, I mean, there are some real innovators in the history of surfing, but Tom's right there.
Yep.
I mean, for positive, there's more people in the world riding a Morey boogie than any other surfing vehicle, for sure.
That's right.
And if you think about the fact that that prior to the Morey boogie, we had a lot of areas that would be blackballed for just swimming, body surfing, and riding rafts and things like that. So all you would see is that these surfers would be going like, oh my gosh, it's blackballed again at T Street, and the waves are perfect, and the people are just riding straight to shore on a raft. Just like 20 across, riding straight to shore on a raft, and it's like, what a waste, what a waste, what a waste. And even the body surfers were just going just pretty much just going straight and doing a couple of spins or something. Then all of a sudden the boogie board comes out, and all of a sudden the snack stand starts renting boogie boards instead of rafts. or at least alongside rafts. And the people on the rafts are going like, straight to shore, just trying to barely, make a turn. Meantime, the boogie boarders are going like, no, 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 no. And all of a sudden, a lot of surfers would surf in the morning and then go grab their boogie board as soon as they blackballed. And they would go out and just, because they're like, no, this is really surfing. This is just surfing on a different vehicle compared to riding a raft. Did not feel to them like they were surfing still, and that they were riding the wave the way they did on their surfboards.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're absolutely right. I remember standing on the Huntington Pier years ago when I looked out over the pier. This is probably a profound moment for me. And I looked out, and there was a boogie board on every single towel as far as I could see. As far as I could see. And I'm going, when you put it into perspective, particularly us here, because we were in the 70s with this whole thing, and looking back on it later and just going, dang, we were a part of that. The part of that, the whole
surfing history.
Yeah, the history of it. It was just so hard to, comprehend, because it's, like I said, on the video the other night about when we were at the factory building the 50th anniversary board, Tom was there holding onto a pole, like for dear life. He wanted to be a part of that board so bad. And he wanted, really to infuse his spirit into that board. And that was a historical moment for me to be able to be there, and have him with us, and Marsha and him and Debbie and all these rock stars, PMA and Pete Anaya and JP Patterson. That was probably the 50th anniversary was pretty historical. And then him and that 50th anniversary board, I think, was a special moment.
Yeah, I wish JP was here. He's got some stories with Tom.
I wanted to say something. I actually have an injury and I need to go ice it right now.
Okay.
So I will be bugging out, but I do. Pat, do you have some questions for that board? As long as we're on the subject
right now, and then we'll real quickly, and then the family's on their way in, so I just got a message from them. So let's do that. The backstory is, a lot of people don't know the backstory of this board. I mean, you guys do, but people that are watching this or watching it later, they don't know, they don't realize that that 50th anniversary board was real special in particularly the I should say the group that put the 50th anniversary together. Because we and here comes Soul. Good. Okay, so let's do this with Soul. Let's introduce Soul first, and then we'll bring him in. Okay. And Tep, he's with Tep. Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Let's Deb. I think I'm about to save that because Tep Paul's with them, and let me go ahead and bring them in. Hey, you guys, what is that? Top of somebody's head?
Focus.
What is that? Oh, there you are. Hey, how's it?
Aloha.
Aloha. Tap, how are you? Can you hear? You can't hear?
He might be able to hear us, but he may not have a mic.
Yeah, can you hear us here? Can you hear us? No. I heard him say aloha, though. I heard him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's getting it together.
They're getting it together. But anyway, well, let's do the 50th real quick while they're getting it together, and then he can come in because he was a part of this too. If you don't mind, Deb, let me go ahead and present it. Anyway, the group, the Global Boogie Board Group, decided that one board, since it was COVID and nobody could manufacturer it, decided that let's just build one board. So this is it. Actually, it's right behind me here too. I've got it here with the letter of authentication. Oh, I'll say it right, and the little plaque. But tell us a little bit about it, Deb, before you go.
Okay. First of all, we wanted to duplicate the first one, which was made out of newspaper, and that actually got written. But the very first one was made with newspaper around it. So we just wanted to duplicate it, and the materials we used were the original material, the PE material that he used later on after L200 material that the kits were made out of. They went to this other material, that this board is. So Tom was there, and he wanted, to be there and help with the design of it and make sure everything's fine. Marcia Morey was there, of course, Pete Anaya, PMA, and JP Patterson and myself. And we, and Pat, of course, and we wanted to just duplicate that board so it's exactly like that board minus the newspaper. So keep in mind that Tom Morey was there.
With modern materials.
Yeah, but not too modern because it doesn't have a slick bottom. It's just the decking material all the way around. That template. Tom was there to approve it. It's unfortunately he passed, shortly after. So Tom put his signature on this, as did everybody else. And it's special because he was in there. His face was right in there designing this board. So it's, the first board he did was with the newspaper, and the last board he worked on and helped with is this board. So you have the first board and the last board, historic, has historic value. It's the last board that Tom Morey worked on. And so, it's pretty special.
Yeah, that is a good point, Deb. That's a great point, actually, because, he really did want, it was very important to him. And I think I will tell you that we do have some people that are going to bid on it today. We have a private bid going down today. And that's one of the things, that I want to stress, that that we're selling something that's got Tom all over it. It's Tom. And it's going to live in perpetuity like the first board. So it's not a $100 board. It's not a $200 board. It's not a $1,000 board. It's the Holy Grail. And and like you said, he was there. He was present. He wanted. It was real important to him that it was made just right. And is there anything else you want to say about it? Because I know you.
Yeah, JP Patterson made the case it's in. It comes with the case, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was made by JP Patterson. He's got history, as we know. And PMA is one of the best shapers in the world. And, I was there to give my 1 cent, whatever. No, I was in there helping. And, of course, Tom, he's in there designing. So again, it's Tom's last board that he helped design, which was a replica of his first board. So I think that's pretty special.
I do too.
Totally.
And on that note, I'm going to go ice my leg.
Okay. Yeah, take care of yourself. Thank you for coming in and making another historical day with us. Yeah, thanks. Bye, Joey. Love you. You too, Tony. And I don't know if Sol could hear me, but bye, guys. And thanks you guys listening, Tyrone and all you guys. Talk soon. Bye. Bye. There you go. So can you hear us now, Sol? Oh, but we can't hear you. Oh, that's too bad. We need.
Right. Who reads lips?
I don't know. Now, when you come in, if you want to go back out and come in, and anybody else that wants to come in, that link that's tickering along the bottom there, that's the link to come in. And I've sent it out to everyone that's supposed to come in today, so we should be okay. But yeah, and the people watching, if you want to come in and just say hi to the family or whatever, we've got Sol Morey coming in here in a moment, and Tep Paul. If you remember this, Joey, the same way I do, that logo with the, the famous logo with the long hair on the long flowing hair. That was Tep. That was, Craig Lipuse is the graphic artist that made that Morey logo, and he modeled it after a photo of Tep Paul, and they wanted it to be. They wanted the logo to not represent one sex, but both. It could be male or female. Right. And it was kind of, but Tep was the person that the photo was shot, right? That was modeled after. Inspiration.
Like that, like on the logo that you had it on the 50th Let's Boogie.
Oh yeah. And that
Right.
one too, yeah.
Yeah.
I was
The
just
original Morey Boogie logo.
yeah, I was
Yeah.
going to put up a Morey Boogie logo, but yeah, that's thank you, Tony. Yeah, that hair that came into the wave was the gentleman that's going to join us in a minute. So we go
That's rad.
in the triangle we talk about today. In fact, the Carlsbad magazine loved this story where, you know, I lived on Maple. I know you did later, Joey, and Jim Favor lived on Garfield, and Tom lived on Chestnut. Well, the people that are going to come in today were actually in that little circle. Tep Paul was right there on Chestnut, and let's see who else, and Momi, who was.
And Tep helped Tom with the boards too.
That's right. Yeah, they were, and oh, you know who should be in here? Lisa Cedarval. She has some stories about Tom. But all those days were almost like when you look back in your memory, they're bright. You know, they weren't like foggy memories; they were bright memories. I can remember, you know, just like it was sunshine. It was sunshine around that whole area.
But you're talking about the formation of what is the world bodyboarding now in a garage.
Right.
It was in Tom's garage.
That's right.
That's where it all started.
That's right. And
I saw a garage that was even more famous than that one though a while back, and that was
in Hawaii.
A garage in Palo Alto that was the start of Hewlett Packard.
Right. And there's also a garage of Apple starting and Microsoft.
Right.
They all started in a garage. And
Right.
then it just went boom.
I know, isn't that classic?
Yeah.
That is so classic.
Yeah. And it's like, what kind of visionary comes up with an idea that starts in a garage and goes to this world?
Right.
Product.
Touches everybody in the world.
Right. It's just unbelievable.
It is.
And I can tell you, even though there's already millions of people boogie boarding around the world, I just had an opportunity to go back to Texas and go into the wave pool back there with Jay and Vicky Riel, and my brother Tom Prince was there, and Chris Powers was there. You know, we grabbed he and I out of retirement to go ride, and so now as we start to have more and more of the wave pools around, they are really conducive to bodyboarding and boogie boarding, just like you know. So I could just see people just wanting to dominate the wave pools, and so now they don't even have to be next to an ocean, you know, to be able to go riding, you know, every day. Perfect waves.
That one in Waco is perfect because it has little wedges and waves coming at different angles and stuff, and it's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, and now they made the bigger one of it in Brazil, which is by the same company, and it's 6 acres long. So it's so now you have a public wave pool that people are getting, you know, like 30-second rides on, and then just paddle back out, and you're in line to go get another one. No waiting, just boom, boom, boom. And the surfers that what we noticed, and we had the wave pool all to ourselves with just the boogie boarders, but after we were done, then they would have public sessions where the surfers would come in, and the surfers would fall a lot on a wave pool. So they take off, they fall on the takeoff, and then now the wave just goes unridden. So the boogie boarders just sit inside and just take off and ride the wave the rest of the way. So, but the boogie boarders hardly ever fall, you know, unless they're like doing a trick or something.
Yeah.
Like doing a big aerial.
So it's like, if you're going to pay money to go ride waves, like you would pay money to go skiing or something like that, it's like, you don't want to fall on 3/4 of your waves while you're beginning, because you know, you're paying for those falls. You would rather, you know, let's start off with, you know, with being able to just rip, and then you know, we'll just move on from there. So we were having way more fun. There were so few of us.
We need pictures of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible.
Kind of a historical video. We're going to have to round up a couple pictures of that, because I know I saw the waves look awesome. All right, let's see if we have Soul and Tep back in. Are you guys in? Kind of, sort of, maybe. Anyway, I was just getting ready. I lined up. We were talking about TEP being one of the inspirations for Craig Libuse to create the original Morey boogie. And about a year later, I had Tony and Scott Evans and Roger Waller in my living room in Carlsbad and said, let's form a competition circuit like the Western Surfing Association. So we came up and Craig just reversed or he tweaked the logo a little bit and made us the Western Boogie Association logo for our competitions. Do you remember that, Tony?
Yeah, I remember, and I was excited about it because I remember I remember competing in Oceanside, my very first contest. Luckily, I was older, so I didn't have to go against. There was very few people that were over the age of 18 that were in the
and you
early
were 19,
contest.
right?
Yeah, and so I went out and I'm riding, and I'm up against Joey and Bobby Zabad, the employees of of Morey Boogie, and so I was happy that I finished third behind them, because I'm like, wow, I beat everybody that isn't an employee of Morey Boogie. That's awesome.
Everybody but the ringers, huh?
Right, exactly. The people, the insiders that, of course, I would, it would be tough to beat them, the legends. And then I'm like, oh, this is so much fun to compete. We have to get a team together that has people in every age bracket. So there was tons of people that were like 13 to 15, 16 to 8, under 8, 16 and 17-year-olds, because there was lots of people like that. But there were not a lot of people that were like under 12 that were rippers at bodyboarding or boogie boarding at that time. So I remember, I don't know if it was like Matt Archibald or somebody at T Street said, you got to go to State Park and find Chris Powers. He is just unbelievable. and he's in elementary school right now. And so Chris Powers, I'm like, I find him. And it's like, yeah, we want you to be on the, San Clemente boogie board team to compete. And I met with his mom, and it's like, yeah, we're going to take him around to your son, we're going to take him around to all these places, and everybody's going to be older than him except the people he's competing against. And she's just like, okay, I can at least vet you a little bit, before so I don't have the human trafficking with my son. And then Chris, was back. I mean, we get together every once in a while, and he just has such fond memories of all those early days of going down and going, whether it was skateboarding in La Costa with Joey, or going out with Mike Lambrisi, or going to the contest. It's totally different experience when you're in grade school and you're in the center light, spotlight, than it was for like us. By the time the contest started, we were already adults, so that's
you're a little grom. All of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm in the in crowd.
Right. The total spotlight, on a statewide tour, and you're, and you go back to school, and you're, you're in elementary school, and the people are like, learning how to count and stuff, and you're like, yeah, I just took off at Zuma on on the little skinny boogie, and dropped into 8-foot barrels, and they're like, oh really? Because I was watching cartoons this weekend.
Well, before we get to Soul and Tep, I just want to say that most people, because this is being recorded, probably going to be kind of a historical one that we'll archive. The Western Boogie Association was real important in the early, the 70s there. It was real important to advance the sport a little bit. So if you have anything that's from that era, it's vintage. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think Scott and Roger both have like stuff from that time period.
Yeah. Let's bring in, now we were just talking about, you guys, Soul on the I guess looking at, I don't know, you see the way it's worded there, Soul's there and then Tep's there. Tep, we were talking about how Craig was using you and your long hair as an inspiration for the logo. And
that's off the poster.
Yeah, for the
Right.
poster. Tell us a little bit about what you remember about that.
Well, I happen to have it right here.
Oh, look at you. Look
Whoa.
at that. Okay, so that was the oh look, I remember that picture. Yes. And then
And
but
this,
then the logo was his inspiration also, right? I can bring
Yeah.
it up if you
It's
want.
at the bottom of it, right? Is that where the logo came in?
No, I don't
Oh
think
no.
so.
Oh no. That was where they were showing the flexibility.
right.
Yeah.
This is my younger brother, Jay, over here in the left corner, like riding on his knees with his arms up in the air. But this photo of me was taken by Warren Bolster, and I
Oh,
think it
wow.
was down in Del Mar. There was no surf that day, so we drove up and down the coast looking for waves. And I think it was like at Seaside Reef, maybe, and it was like the outside formation. It wasn't really breaking, but I was able to get a turn in, and he was able to get a picture. So
Isn't that something? Oh, that's great.
not bad
Yeah.
for a day of no surf.
Right. That's tough when you have a photo shoot scheduled and it has to be that day. And you're
Exactly.
like, okay,
Yeah.
He was a
Mother
busy
Nature
guy,
has to
so
cooperate.
And that happened to Mike Lambrisi when he went. Oh, he wasn't with Warren Bolster. He went with Mike Moyer. That's right. Yeah.
Warren Bolster was involved in a lot of the early part
Yeah.
of the boogie board.
Yeah, he was.
There's a shirt.
Worked for Surfer Mag.
Yeah,
Surfing
there's
Mag.
that picture.
Oh yeah, Surf
Yeah,
More.
that's
For good
awesome.
it was
feeling.
on the T-shirt.
Look at you.
Wow.
We're such an honor to have you here
Vintage.
today.
And then I
Awesome.
have the here's the Craig LeBuse.
Yeah, that's what
the
everybody
one.
remembers.
Yeah, that's
So that's supposed to be your hair, right, Tep?
Exactly. It wasn't quite that long, but it was long.
I had long hair then too, but not that long.
yeah.
I don't know. Yours was pretty long, Tony.
Yours was long, Tony.
Yeah.
Well,
And then
that's
I
that.
have
I
this
think that is-
T-shirt also.
Yeah,
Oh, so
exactly.
cool.
Yep.
In the Oceanside contest in
Yep.
'76.
So those shirts are in
Yeah.
such good condition because they don't fit no more, right?
This year one doesn't fit. Nope.
Okay, do me
It's
a
it's a
favor.
Moke shirt.
Could you put those up on the screen again because I got you full screen now, just for the sake of some shots.
Yeah, to capture it.
Up where your face. Yeah. See that
That was awesome.
if you look at how Craig did that, it really you couldn't. Your hair just went flawlessly into the wave, and it's 76. Look at that. That was the first annual boogie board contest.
Yeah,
That's classic, Tep.
Man, oh man.
that is.
And
Well,
then
I held on to it for someday.
Yeah, surf Morey for good feeling.
that's right. That's
Exactly.
Right. Good job.
That's awesome. What an honor to have your picture as the
Yeah.
main starting photo.
Well, and then a few years later, I got another picture that was on the Aussie board.
Oh, look at that.
That's me in the orange cap. That was taken at Haleiwa in a contest.
Oh wow. That's
And
the
those were
contest that Tony's talking about before
Yeah.
you guys got here
Yeah.
in 77.
Yep.
And at the bottom of that poster, you have on the other side, the other corner, yeah, you have Chris Powers with the sunset behind him.
Oh yeah,
of the
that's who we were just
Okay.
talking about, Tep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah.
We were just
Yeah,
talking
those
about
are some good pictures on that one.
that is awesome.
Yeah, look at this guy. It's like barreling away.
Uh-huh.
Or is it?
Where are you trying to get to?
Under the E
That looks
there.
like Frank Zabad,
There.
one of them.
Yeah, that's a cool.
looks
His
like
body
Paul
moving ahead of the board in the curve. That's pretty
Right.
cool.
Yeah, that looks like Paul Beach. I don't know. It's weird because that's all the people that worked there.
Right.
I mean, I am so glad that we captured all this, and I'm so glad that you came on this, kind of honorarium video that we're doing today.
And the
Tom.
board he's riding, he has in his garage, which is like an original, an EVA. It's got a blue deck and the white top.
Oh my gosh.
like a kit board.
Yeah,
Beautiful. It's in perfect condition.
Wow.
Where are you guys calling in from?
Leavenworth.
Leavenworth. Is that Washington?
Yeah.
Leavenworth, Washington.
North
And
Central
Tony's coming in from San Clemente, Capo or San Clemente, Tony?
Yeah, San Juan Capistrano.
And Joey Gibbs is coming in from Ventura.
Oxnard.
Oxnard. Yeah, and I'm coming in from Oceanside, so we got everybody from everywhere here.
West
And
Coast.
Debbie just left. We've got Marsha should be walking in any moment.
Neat.
And we've talked about everything so far, you guys. Just our old days. We're 70s people also. You know, we all worked at the factory, worked at the first factory. Tony went on the first contest I did in Haleiwa. He actually got invited because of his personality and not because of his writing skills. No,
Oh, come
That's-
on. Come
That's
on.
totally that's
No.
totally clear to anybody that saw, you know, where I ranked in the
I am
contest.
joking. I'm joking. No, but he was my little Morey ambassador. So he had the way with the girls and the way with the mouth, and just give him the microphone right now and you'll see what I'm talking about.
He was the stoke master.
Right.
It was
Yeah.
There's some great
Yeah.
pictures of you there getting some bit of air at the in Texas, no? The Schlitterbahn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
those are those I shot most of those pictures. We were looking at like where the angle was, and it was like Vicky, Riel, and my brother Tom Prince
Beautiful.
were both doing the airs, and
Yeah.
and I saw that if you shoot from the like beach, you know, you're like too far away. So I just took my land camera and went out into the water, into like waist deep swimming pool. And
Wow.
so the lifeguard said to Brian Press, who does a lot of the videos, he said, you should tell that guy to get out of the out of the water, because you know, maybe every once in a while a set comes or something because they push the wrong button, and I'm gonna knock him over with his camera. And he goes, no, you won't be able to get him out. He's just too stoked. You know, he's just gonna take his camera and just chance losing it. And so then I got all those pictures of Vicky flying and my brother flying, and Brian Press and Chris Powers just getting barreled, and the guys like Justin just doing the massive drop knee slashes and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just incredible. We were just talking about how there's already millions of people boogie boarding around the world, and now that the wave pools are going to be popping up over the next few years, it's going to like double, you know, the amount of people, because it is just entirely too much fun to go in a you know, be in the middle of Texas or in the middle of nowhere and just go down and pay your money and guarantee you're going to get wave after wave after wave after wave in
And
warm water with no sharks, and just have a blast. There, people are just going to go berserk with the more that the wave pools
really
come in.
Could I ask the person
Inland.
that just typed this and posted it? Could you put your name on the next post? Because I'd like to find. That's a very nice compliment to everybody. And did I see Yarina in the background there?
That was Brian West. Brian West did that.
Oh, Brian. Okay, thank you. Let me know thank you, Brian. That was really nice, and we all are just, you know, kind of honored to be here today, celebrating. Crazy that's been a year, isn't it? Hi, let's see you over there in the corner. We can say hi to her too. That's Soul's wife. Looking real good. But Tep, tell us a little bit. We asked everybody earlier that was in, what would you say was the most profound moment that has come to you, knowing that you have such a history with Tom and the boogie board, that where you just went, oh my gosh, I was a part of that. Was there a moment that you felt that way?
Just watching it grow, you know, as I progressed from surf mats to boogie boards to surfboards to moving to Hawaii and body surfing and boogie boarding and surfing, and watching it all grow. I'm thinking about a sad part for me was I was kind of being into contests, Hawaiian Surfing Association and boogie board contests at Sandy Beach and places like that. And there was one of the early pipeline boogie board contests at Pipe, and I was working at Hawaiian Island Creations at the time. The Ala Moana store was brand new, so I wanted to be in that contest. So Hawaiian Island Creations was sponsoring me. Filled out the application, gave it to them to, you know, send it in. Took the weekend off, drove up to the contest, and when I got there, they never got my application, my entry fee. So I was not in the contest.
Oh.
And that
Oh.
really, really, I was bummed.
Uh-huh.
The waves were perfect. It was 6 to 8 foot pipeline, and I couldn't even stay and watch. I had to leave. I just went somewhere else and
that must have
went
been
crushed.
boogie boarding. And
Crushed.
that was kind of the end of my competitive spirit. I was just, really down by that. But just being able to be all the places I went to with Tom when I was younger, adventures he took me on, driving his car with his knee, playing his ukulele, going to skateboard spots or just all kinds of fun stuff and things that he thought up or invented or conversations we had. He was kind of out there at times. And,
Oh yeah.
So, Jeff, didn't you work with Tom at his house at Chestnut?
Not really. That his house at Chestnut, I lived right down the street, and so I was pretty young. I actually met him because I was in possession of a stolen prototype.
Oh.
When we lived on Chestnut, I had some guys that lived next to me that were, in probably early 20s, and I was probably 13. And I walked by their house one day, and I saw this red board in the driveway. And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "I don't know. You want it?" And I said, "Okay." So I grabbed it and put on my fins and went down and, rode it like a boogie board. I didn't know rode it like a surf mat, basically. And I came home and I rode it a few days. And one day I rinsed off in my front yard and left the board and my wetsuit in the front yard, went in the house. A few minutes later, there's a knock at the door. And there's this man standing there and he says, "Hi, my name is Tom. Where did you get that?" And I'm like, the guys next door gave it to me. And he's like, "Okay." And then his next question was, "How did it work? How did you like it?
Oh, look
What
at
did
that.
you?" He started questioning me about, and
Yeah.
it wasn't flexible. It wasn't foam yet. This was a solid plastic, like a hollow plastic, like
Wow.
vacuum molded kind of a thing. It didn't have any flex to it. It had the
Right.
vacuum track rails, the shape and everything, but it was
Yeah.
hard plastic.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
that began our friendship, right
Oh, of
then and
course.
there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then he
a
gave
knock
me
on the
a
door.
real one to try instead of that one.
Yeah.
Apparently, these guys ripped off his garage in the middle of the night. They had
Oh.
his easy chair. He got everything back. They had it sitting
Well,
right down
here's
the
somebody
block.
here. I want you all put your hands together for the queen herself. She's just arrived. Marsha Morey. Give her a hand.
All right, Marcia.
Oh, Marcia.
Guys.
Marcia.
I love you, family.
So,
You're all awesome.
I bring you up to date. We've talked about the early days down in Haleiwa with Joey and Tony. Debbie was in. She talked about some of the production with Tom and the 50th anniversary board. Tep and Soul just arrived. So we're talking about the historical factor of that logo that Craig Labuse, created with Tep's hair, and it was iconic. I mean, totally iconic.
Definitely.
And then the Western Boogie, Craig reversed it and made our boogie board, which wasn't as big as, the original one, but it was the first competition. So anyway, we'll let you talk. Ask her questions, everybody. This is the lady here. She's here.
Aloha.
Tep and Soul and
Tony Prince.
Heidi's probably hiding in there. Hi, Tony.
Heidi's here, yes.
And then there's
Well, I reflect back on the genius of this man. I've gotten myself to the islands like Patty, and I've sort of lived my life according to how the wind blows and what opportunities arise. And then most of the time I could use my common sense, but every once in a while I sort of jumped off the cliff and got myself in a little trouble. But mostly my life has been just an amazing journey and blessing with all the beauty of all the people that are out there, that are doers and are about getting our planet back on track and looking at us as the human race instead of all this other BS. So I've I've gone to Oahu and ended up on Kauai. And I got myself a job in this really cool restaurant down in Poipu. And I've been living with a bunch of surfers from Corona del Mar and so forth. In
They have
California.
surfing Corona. No, I'm just joking.
And Corona del Mar.
Corona del Mar, I mean, surf.
That's-
Anyway,
that's
anyway, go ahead.
beaching.
Yeah, beach.
So,
okay.
I need to get a job to make some money because where I was living with these guys, I was the only body that had money at the point. So I go down to this restaurant, which is just a bitchin' plantation house that's called Plantation Garden. And the owners originally, who had moved on, had traveled the world and brought succulents from all over the world and planted the grounds. And then there were the Hawaiian shower trees, or the tropical shower trees, and all these humongous, beautiful trees on the land. So it's a restaurant in the evening and a tour garden during the day. So somebody said they were looking for somebody to help at the kitchen. So I go and apply, and it's this awesome fellow, we call him Gam, fabulous cook. And he says, yeah, I could use you. And he says, well, where are we going to put you? And I said, well, I'm in limbo. He says, oh, I got an idea. He says, off of the garage in the back is a washroom, but it's a big washroom with the big, sinks and some space in there. He said we could make that a little apartment. So that's what we do.
Wow.
So I'm living under these big shower trees, and I start in the kitchen. And my dad was a chef, so I had some common sense. And in the process, a bunch of surfers who were from Santa Cruz were working there as waiters, and a lot of surfers came in there for dinner. So one of the families that came in was Tom and his wife, Jolly, and the two daughters, Melinda and Michelle. And Tom would come back after a big, wonderful meal and thank all the workers. So that was the first time I think I met him in person. I knew who he was. I'd seen him at surf contests in California and so forth. And so later, I ended up moving into a house with a bunch of surfers. And Tom and his first wife had sort of gone their separate ways, and he had rented a room in that house. And I thought, oh, boy, this is a strange dude. He's really out there. And so
wonder you could get away with saying that.
I know. So I'd go into Lahui, and my best way to get there, because I didn't have a car, was to hitchhike. So
That's right. That's how we did it.
One day, this turquoise Chevy, he had hand painted it with turquoise paint, pulled over and picked me up. And in the front seat was his wife, Jolly, and in the back seat were his two girls. So I get in the car, and so anyways, he's a nice guy, and he, asks all the nice questions and blah, blah, blah. So that's sort of the first time I really talked to him. And so time passed, and he had a jazz band at the Poipu Beach Hotel. And he had two brothers who were Filipino, a bassist and a guitar player, and Tom on the drums. And they would play jazz. And it was just so wonderful to be in Hawaii and have a really good jazz band, because I grew up, my dad had all the jazz records from the past, and I went to the Lighthouse in Hermosa Beach when I was just out of high school. And it, it was music for my soul.
Mhm.
So anyways, time passes, and I had become a member of the Baha'i community, a Baha'i faith, and we were putting on a summer school, and all these different surfers, I guess, were talking to Tom a little bit about the Baha'i faith. And so anyways, I'm up there as a chef. They need a cook for the summer school, so I'm cooking. And all of a sudden, it's toward the end of this weekend, and everybody's clapping and cheering and blah, blah, blah. And Tom had decided he liked what the Baha'i faith said, and he became a Baha'i.
Mm.
And I went, wow, that's really interesting. When I became a Baha'i, nobody said a dang thing. So anyways.
I'm gonna scoot out here. I'm gonna scoot out.
So, excuse me.
Keep talking. Scoot
Yeah.
out. Changing of the guards.
So
keep talking your story.
So we ended up getting together at somebody's wedding. We were talking, and then the next thing I knew, we were renting a house together, and I had met with his wife, and their situation was it wasn't working prior to even them coming to the islands, and so we became friends. And for a while, Tom was making all these bizarre surfboards. He had one board that he had up in the rafters that had all these holes.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say 30 holes in the board from the nose to the tail that were vents to lift the board up so it would not drag and would go faster. But the problem was nobody wanted to glass it because you've got all these puka holes that are at an angle, and they're going, nah. So there were things he made through the years. This was not the only thing. He just walked away from it and went on to the next thing. He was like a guy that loved a Kleenex box. And so he had these different ideas that come along, and he would follow through. And he was into absorptivity hoops, which was a means of creating electrical current. And, I was just the gopher or holding, the piece while he's doing the experiments. And he journeyed way out there. We went to England because there was a fellow who had made a flying saucer. And he had created a engine that people from another planet or whatever showed him how to do this. And so we ended up in England, and that was pretty interesting. Won't go very far with that. But his mind was always expanding and looking at alternative energy and how to make the world a better place. And so our whole life was really centered around what can we do that makes people happy and makes it a better world. And so we weren't married yet, but I was pregnant. And so we ended up moving to the Big Island. And Sol was in my tummy. And Tom when we were on Oahu, Tom took all the free classes he could for Scientology, just more information to see what he was going to do in life. And so he had a friend from Germany who he'd met in Costa Rica. And she had a place on the beach, which was Honol's beach. And because the neighbor's name was Honol. And she invited us to live there. And we lived over the garage. And Tom on Oahu had gotten some foam from Happy Swartz, one of the guys that had a shop on Oahu. And we're at this little beach, but it's pretty shallow. But when the waves come in, they're fairly nice size. And he didn't have a surfboard. So he decided one day shape something. He wasn't quite sure. So he started with really small boards, like almost a kickboard, and then they went up in size. And he started figuring out how to cut it this way. And then he figured, oh, I got to close the cell. So he got the newspaper and an iron and sealed it so it wouldn't absorb the water. And so it just slid from one thing to the next. And one day he's just really excited. I'm going, well, what's going on? And he says, I've got this new shape. It's a little bit long, but I like this shape. He says, I've taken the rail on one side and cut it this way. And I took the rail on the other side and cut it the opposite way to see which maybe works better to pull the board into the wave. And so he had ironed this board and sort of sealed it temporarily. And he's in his Speedo. You know, he didn't wear surf trunks.
Yeah, we saw that.
He's got his regular old Speedos on. And he goes out in front of the house there. And it's a little bit shallow, but the tide's coming in and it gets a little bigger. And I'm watching him, and he catches this awesome wave, and he comes all the way to the shore, and he's ecstatic. He says, oh, you just can't believe how special and wonderful this is. It just rides so great. And you just go and go. And he says, I can turn it this way and that way. So I'm at least 7 months, maybe more months pregnant with Soul. And he's so excited. He says, Marcia, you've got to try it. It's the most wonderful thing. And it's soft and it's not going to hurt you. And you're out there and something happens. You just put that board up against your belly and everything will be okay. So I paddle out, and it's sort of shallow when I first go out. It's sort of pulling out a bit. So I walk on the reef, and then the wave comes in a bit. And so I go over the wave and get out there where it's deep enough. And that's really cool. So I turn around and start paddling, and I catch this wave, and I just couldn't believe it. It was really picking up, and I banked it one way and the board went that way, and I banked it the other way, and I went, wow, this is really fun. So I cruised on into the shoreline after I had gone one more time out, and the wave was coming, but as the wave was coming that I was going to catch, the shoreline sucked out, and I'm freaking standing on the reef. And I'm going, what the heck have I done?
And that's a sharp reef too.
Yeah. So I went, I'm just going to put this up against my belly and wait till the water gets behind me, and into the shore I went. And it was just so awesome. So anyways, Tom needed to make some money. And so he started doing different things, and he sold off different things so that we could get enough money to go to the mainland so he could make these boards. And of course, the original kit board was much shorter and a different shape, but he was always working on it. So here we are, we're in Carlsbad, where Tep, his mom, Morey, and his brother, Jay, are hanging out. They live down the street. And as they said, the neighbor on the corner, there was a bunch of guys on PCH, and they had taken a board or two out of the yard. And then they got where they figured, hey, we got to do something about this. We don't want to get caught or whatever. So they were giving them to Jay and Alan and Tep. So Tom started making those early boards right there in we bought a house there, and right there on Chestnut Street, Tom made these first kit boards. And he said, I'm going to get a hold of John Severson or Pesman, whoever it was that had the mag that he did his very first ad in. And I think they didn't charge him much to put the ad in. And it was a coupon kind of a thing. And it was a mail order. And so he would shape the shape. Then I would cut out this foam that he had found up in LA that could be glued to the core. And a lot of people, when they got their kits, they didn't know the difference between contact cement and glue. And so some just used regular glue, and of course it didn't adhere. But
Wow.
So I remember he the magazine came out, and he said, I expect maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks before we get the first order. And it was probably about a week and a half. He got one order, and he went, oh, wow, look at this. And then they started coming in, dripping in. And then they had checks in them. And he says, he told me a couple of years ago, he says, I sure wish I would have kept that first check, or a copy of it,
Yeah.
And so to mail them out cost a lot to mail one at a time. If you went to the local mailbox or post office, like in Carlsbad or an incorporated city. But if you went out into the county, it's called a third class post office. So he found that he could put 4 boards in the dimensional size of shipping, and he could send 4 boards for very, very little money. And so somebody was calling different shops and saying, you want to buy some? And then, but originally it was all of the first purchases were from the coupon in the magazine. Yeah. So that was, we just were just stoked. There were side effects with having our home be the shop. And so the garage Tom confiscated the kitchen table, and it went to the garage to be a shaping table. And then that foam is like curly stuff, and our carpet was hook carpet. So our whole living room was basically, you couldn't get it, the vacuum wouldn't work, was the foam shavings.
Balls of foam were everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Great story. A lot of that I'd never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you shared that with us. Well,
Sure.
no, stay right there.
No, you're good. Come on in. You're the champ.
I wanted to add something to that, Marcia.
Yeah.
So you were talking about shipping the boards out. That was where I actually got my first board, was from it was a surf shop in La Jolla that sold blanks surfboards, and they had some kits there. It was called Mitch's Surf Shop in La Jolla.
Yeah.
And so you guys had sent a bunch of kits there, and that's where I got my first board.
Fantastic.
And
Yeah,
that was
another one.
what year was that, Joey?
That was 74. I was right after I graduated from high school,
Okay.
and I was working nights, and I had all day. I worked in a restaurant at night, so I had all day to play, and I decided I wanted to play in the ocean.
All right. Well, one of the
And the
main
size,
things that people sort of forget about is this happened because Tom just he had ideas like people pull out napkins or Kleenex, they just kept coming at him.
Yeah.
He had all these things to do with energy and space machines and flying saucers and alternative motors and so forth. But the thing was, none of this would have really probably taken off without the beginning, maybe 50 people then 100 people, then thousands of people who really made it happen. When we were leaving the Big Island, and we were going to go to the mainland and see if we could sell this, and we didn't have enough money, so Tom had made some very strange boards from not the boogie foam, but some different foam, foam. And so he started selling everything we had. And then we had these school teachers who lived up in a certain section on the Big Island, and they had become our very dear, dear friends. And all of them started investing. They said, well, you got to get to the mainland. You got to make this thing. So one person gave their 10-speed bike, and we sold that, and we got $100. And then another person, she was from England, and she gave $1,000 to Tom.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
In those days, that was a lot of money.
And then the school teachers, they came up with something. And then there was a lady from Vegas, and she donated. And so people just started donating to start this company.
Because they knew.
And
they knew it was big.
And everybody that invested along the way, as it grew in different stages, Tom would pay them back.
Wow. So they were angel investors.
What's that?
They were like angel investors, is what
they were truly angel investors. One guy gave a van. He was going back to the mainland. He had a van, and we sold it, and he got half, and we got half. I mean, it was just a wonderful, wonderful time, to be there. And then we got to the mainland, and his buddy he went to college with, he says, come and live with us. And so we did, and got ourselves settled. And the next thing, we went to Solana Beach to live with friends he had met when he was in the surfing business, Holmesy, or Bill Holmes, and his wife, Cindy. And
oh, wow, yeah.
And they were he built boats, and he worked for big yacht companies over the years. And everybody came together to make it happen. Then he went down to San Diego because Larry Gordon, who made Gordon and Smith surfboards, had a big shop, and he went down to see if Larry would help him manufacture the boogies. And got down there, and Larry and his partner said, no. Tom, we want you to make a surfboard.
Yeah.
So Tom made the water skate and a few other things. But Gordon and Smith never really got into the boogie business until maybe they made a few sometime later. Right. But all the people that believe in each other and are there to help the next person, give a hand up. Awesome.
Yeah. And that's exactly how it was with Tom. Had an uncanny way of getting people to work for him. I mean, or to do something for him, didn't he? Yeah. It just, because I think like we intuitively know, because like when Marcia was talking about her first ride, when Tom was really trying to convince me to go to work for him, he says, well, go try this. And I went right out on your street, Tep, right there on Chestnut. And I went out, and I remember kind of like, I remember, I mean, how you can remember that magical moment. I remember what I had on. I remember the wave. I remember the feeling. And I remember I went to take off straight like a raft, right? And then all of a sudden I'm, trimming down to the left, and I'm going, just like Marcia, I went, oh my God, this is so much fun. And my eyes were like squinted. I was laughing so hard. I run up the hill. You remember, like there at off of no, not Tamarack, but up by us, there was a little path up there. And I knocked on the door of Tom, and I said, just like this, I go, I'm in. He goes, you are? And I went, I was on my way to law school. You know, I had already gone through these business courses and all this, and I'm that's going to be my career. I go, I'm in. And he put me over there in that little office you were talking about, Joey. And with, and with Louise and so we started it.
So to go back to when we got to Chestnut in Carlsbad, Tom had the idea, he was doing the kits, but he knew he needed somebody else to really take him to the next level. Now, we were in Leucadia, and I was pregnant with Moon, and Sol was running around, and so we got on a plane and went to Costa Rica. But before we went, there was this really neat girl, Lisa, and her boyfriend, and they came by. This guy was involved with Jacques Cousteau and the Aqualung back in the early days. And they talked to Tom and they said, Tom, we know a guy that is going to make, if you guys join together, he's going to help you and you're going to help him and it's going to be magic. And we said, well, we're going on a trip to Costa Rica. He says, that's perfect because he and his wife are in Costa Rica, out on the peninsula. So we get to Costa Rica.
Divine.
Within well, as we're flying to Costa Rica, we get to, I can't remember, I guess it was Guatemala or whatever the country was that we would stop to get gas. And everything was black. And all you could see on the runway were fires. And so the volcano had gone off and there was a huge, the Managua earthquake. So we landed, they filled us up. We couldn't get out of the plane and then ended up in Costa Rica. So we go down to the beach in Costa Rica. But before we get down to the beach, we stay in a hotel in the capital, and we're upstairs, and it's myself being pregnant and little Sol. And all of a sudden, we're up on the third floor of this concrete building, and there'd been a parade with elephants coming down the street, and the whole building started shaking, and an earthquake was happening.
Oh, jeez.
And we're going, oh, shoot. So we get out in the street, and so somebody says, you guys just get down to the beach. Go on down to the beach. Take the plane and rent a hotel. So we get in a plane, and we go to... I can't think of the name of the little town right now. So we're there, and in the process, we meet some very interesting people from different places, and but we decide to buy a house in Costa Rica. And it's a house near Manuel Antonio, which is now a big, expensive place. And this local couple, Tico couple, they sold us the house. I think we bought it for like $800, which was like a fortune for them.
Yeah.
And it was up on a hill above the bluff, and the main town was just down the way with the hospital and stuff. And, but it ends up, we stay and Moon's born there. And it ends up, Tom is gotten the Teristas, and same with Sol. They're pretty sick. And Tom could see that he really couldn't get the equipment and stuff to make the boards in Costa Rica. So we got on a plane and left. So we never got over to the peninsula to meet this guy. And so we go, and my dad says, hey, let me help you. Here's a Chrysler, a 50 Chrysler, and I'll help you get a down payment on a house. So we buy the house. And within a short time, there's a guy on the next street that everybody says we need to go and see. Well, that was Jim Favor and Georgie, who were the people that were down in Costa Rica on the peninsula.
OMG. Oh my gosh. That's
Wow.
really a story.
Yeah.
How is it not divine that all of us sitting here, that this little 2-street thing, how could that, I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Tom loves that story.
So all these people came together, and then eventually our neighbor was Momi and her husband Terry and Jeff and Jay, and they decide to go and live in Kailua on Oahu. And we were originally in Kailua, Kona. And so they bought a home and so on and so forth. And we were over there doing something, and Tom said to Momi, I wish Momi was on here,
I know,
that she should, be the dealer and make and distribute the boards on Oahu. And so, Tep, you work with your mom, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
He was just telling me some stories.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I was still in high school at the time, but we...
Wait.
Can you get closer to a mic?
Come closer to a microphone.
Okay,
Oops.
it's because I have...
Lost him. There we go. So we can hear you.
Yeah, I was still in high school, and I was out of high school at noon. I was a senior, and so I went to work at the boogie factory. We didn't build them, we just shipped them, distributed them to all the stores in Hawaii. And so I drove a boogie van, filled it with boogie boards, and went to surf shops and J.C. Penney's and Ala Moana, and went to the airport, shipped them to outer islands. For a while, when we first got started, we didn't have a van yet, and somehow Tom came across like a 10-door limousine.
Oh, of course, we had those long stretch limousines.
He took all the seats out of it except the front seat, and I drove that around Oahu, stuffed with boogie boards, pulling up in surf shops.
This is so classic.
There's probably a picture of it somewhere, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, God, that'd be awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, we actually bought 2 of them. One,
Oh,
they were
really?
both on the Big Island, and shipped one to you guys.
Oh my God.
So that was my first boogie delivery truck, was the stretch limo.
Man.
Wow.
Now, where was the factory? What town?
It was in Kaneohe. So Kaneohe, just 10 miles away or so, and we had a big warehouse. We'd get containers in full of boogie boards, and I would hire my friends to come help unload them. I've got a few pictures of us posing with bags of boogie boards and old rusted cars in the driveway. And we also, that's when Morey Doyle's came out also. And so we were selling Morey Doyle's, and there was a problem. People kept breaking the skegs off because the stringer had a little tab that the little bolts held the skeg onto, and those would snap off. So for, I don't know, a year or so, I started my own little company repairing Morey Doyle's that had broken skegs.
Very cool.
Did that for a little while, out of the warehouse. My grandmother was the office person, Granny. She worked in there. That's kind of how my name became Teppy on boogie board stuff, because I was doing an appearance at Liberty House for Morey Boogie, and I was with. It was when it was aligned with Churchill and Churchill Clothing, and there was a professional body surfer that was also there, and so there was a little poster made that said. They asked my name, and so Granny said, "Oh, it's Teppy." So the Liberty House poster said Teppy Paul and Mike so-and-so, boogie boarder. And so, I don't know, it's what Granny called me, so that's what everybody knows me as now.
Oh, that's cool.
I go by Tep. Everybody around here knows me as Tep, just TEP, which are my initials. Because legally I'm Terry Eugene Paul. So it just was Tep ever since I was little. Not everybody can pronounce their initials, so it just worked. But yeah, those early days in Hawaii with deliveries was we had to learn a lot. shipping them to outer islands was kind of a chore. They would only deliver on certain days, so I had to make those days my, Maui Day and Kauai Day and Big Island Day, and but it was fun. It was a good thing to do.
And you were still in high school.
I was still in high school when I started.
Wow, isn't that cool?
A senior in
I'm
high
so
school.
glad we're documenting all this. We're recording all this because this is very. You want to know a little history lesson? I mean, this goes way back to the back. It's great.
So I remember when I went over to Oahu, and I think Tom was with me on the trip, and we had this conversation, Momi and Tom and I, and Tom says, you guys need to go to the department stores and get accounts. So Momi leading the pack, me, when I was the pack, and we went to Han Sport, we went to J.C. Penney's, we went to those stores that you talked about, and signed up and got orders, and they started selling them out of their stores. And then Tom says, this is good. He says, I'm going to send you girls to the mainland. So he sent Momi and I to LA, and we went to J.C. Penney's and all of the big department stores. And Momi was so professional. We had so many people that signed up to distribute or handle the boogie boards that were, the early ones.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Beautiful, beautiful stories. We haven't heard from Sol. Sol, what are your thoughts? Or you look like you're thinking about something.
I'm really just enjoying these stories because for many years I tried to piece it together, and then I'd hear something about Costa Rica and they never met, and then there comes Jim Favor along those lines, and then your story when I got to reconnect with you, Patty, of coming off an I-5 exit and landing, just a street over, and then you heard about this guy that went swimming without a wetsuit, and there you show up and say, "Hey, Tom," they're again divine.
It's so divine.
It's all very magical.
And your dad wanted me to tell that story. I can't even tell how many times he loved that story because he knew it was divine. Because how did I turn on Elm Avenue, which is now Carlsbad Village Drive, and my car just went like this? And why did I turn on Carlsbad Boulevard like that? And why did I turn on Maple?
The world needed this enjoyment.
It did.
The world needed this stoke.
And there's a house on Maple, and it's right by you guys and Tep and Jim Favor and all of us. Lisa, you ought to heard the stories when we went out to dinner with Lisa Cedarval. She remembers a lot about these old days, running across that field and But anyway,
she told you your house on Maple was their house at one time.
I know.
Too, right?
I know. What's the chances of that? I mean, coming from Costa Mesa, which is 60 miles north, and be guided there, like guided into Carlsbad. I didn't even know why I was driving there. I was just, shh. But what does it feel like when your mom tells you were out on the boogie board? You're like the actual first. You were
that's another fellow was recapping his view of what happened at that time. And said that my dad had a bunch of musical instruments. He loved music and had all these things. So I never realized how much stuff, he was carrying along with him. And when mom and he came over to the islands, and one thing that really stuck out is from the standpoint of this other fellow, he said that Dad's first wave, he took drop knee. And really? I don't know if Mom remembers it that way, but it kind of makes sense as a surfer goes, because you wouldn't necessarily just lay down on something. You might try and get up on a board, even if it's small, even just to get your knee down in a packed mode so you can grab the rail or something like that on a surfboard. I mean, this is where it came from. It came from a guy who was trying to surf something. He'd never maybe thought about just laying down on it. And, coming across the face of that wave, maybe it was drop knee. But in any case, even the place itself, Honnold, now there's the fellow Rex Honnold who survives his father, Mr. Honnold just passed away. God bless his soul.
Oh,
And he was chumming for sharks at that very same place because,
that I went
yeah,
out there.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So these are the stories that just mystify me behind it all. It's
Yep.
pretty rough, pretty rustic beginnings,
Mhm.
and just like connecting with Tepi, who was like to me an older brother as we grew up,
Mm.
and now coming full circle and being able to see this family and these families.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's just an enormous amount of love
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is.
of having created this craft, this plank of enjoyment, this soft plank. Because planking, surfing, was considered the first of its kind
Yeah,
by this fellow James Cook, or
that's right.
James King,
Hmm.
after Captain Cook was killed, and he carried on saying, "Yeah, along this Kona coastline, a lot of surfing, as he described it, but on planks." And on that same coastline, where we see the initiation, the beginning of the boogie board. Well, people were paddleboarding, as we know, but
Mhm.
now is the first soft plank. So I
Yeah.
mean, in a sense, we're plankers, soft plankers. But
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
really a glorious thing to see how Hawaii has become and has continued to be the birthplace of
The epicenter.
ambassador, yeah, the bringing forth of this stoke that's now, like you said earlier, inland surfing coming to the masses. Here we have our hats on, we have our style, we
yeah.
have our look. People say, "Oh, you look like you're a surfer," but do you surf? And
No, I sponged.
now people can surf. They can surf waves and snow. It's
For the
amazing
record,
how it's made it good for everybody to have this enjoyment, whereas mostly life was pretty boring. And then the skateboard, now you're skating, you're surfing the roads,
yeah.
Mhm.
For the
all
record,
happening there in the
Skull,
70s.
I just wanted to interrupt while you were at Honnold's. I just wanted to interrupt real quick because this is going to be kind of a video that we're going to keep forever. And those that don't know, the youngsters that'll watch this later, the place that you're talking about, Honnold's, this year on the 50th anniversary of the Boogie Board, actually erected on the Kings Highway a beautiful, and I can bring it up and show it, I guess, in the video, authentic, what do you call it? Official
Landmark.
Info board
yes,
or something, yes.
yeah. So on the one side is the picture of Tom and the board and a description of what happened there at Hunnell's, and on the other side is the Pipo, because it's the historical highway. So think about that for a minute. He's sitting in the same section of history, water history, and right there where you were and your mom is a historical monument today. So I just want to put that in the video because
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
really
Part
Yeah,
of
the place is called Vaiaha, which is where the waters meet.
yeah. Mhm.
and,
Wow.
and there's a lot more history there, in that as you go down the road and you get to Lyman's, there's a point out at Lyman's, and for years and years and years it was always overgrown. And then on the town side of Lyman's, there was a church, and mainly it was a little teeny Hawaiian church. Well, that point that was south of Lyman's, one of the Pocho, what was their name? The Hawaiian family that started the Kaiapua Canoe Club, their oldest boy, he felt there was something going on at that point by Lyman's. So he went out on his own, because it was all fenced in. You weren't supposed to go in there, but he was Hawaiian, so he went in there and he started clearing that area. And what he discovered is that it was a woman's private gathering place. And so, sort of like the city of refuge, if you needed to get safe, you get to the safe spot. And so it's important to realize the influence of women in this whole reality of the boogie, because it's soft, it's flexible.
Oh,
It's about coming together and having joy and not being so whatever you call steroids or whatever, you know. It's a combination of male and female. And then Honnold's, Rex's dad and Rex's mom lived there, and so everybody just called it Honnold's. But it had its Hawaiian name, which was very much influenced by women. And so the day that Soul was born, Barbara Honnold, the lady that was Rex's mom, passed away of a heart attack.
oh.
And then I came home with baby Soul, and my uncle had passed away from a heart attack. So these different kinds of exchanges of life and death are constantly part of all of our lives. And to realize the death is also the birth of something new. And so there's, in all of our lives where we have these different intersections, our life is full of life and death and birth. And these are kinds of lessons that remind us of who we are. We're not the kind of beings that society is trying to push us into. We're really spiritual light beings in a physical body for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we can uplift each other and make this a better place, and that was the fun thing about the boogie. It made life a lot better.
Yeah, it did. In more ways than one. When you're out in the water,
it created a lot of connections.
It did. And I think the amazing, by the way, I just want to step in and say, if you're on Facebook, all we see is that you're there. If you could put a hyphen, your name after your comment, it's going into the video. So it's nice to know who's out there.
Thank you for your comments.
And thank you. Yeah. Someone thought you sounded like, that was Joe Evans. Yeah. I wish Joe would come in. He could come in and say a lot too. Well, we're coming up on 2 hours, and that's okay, because this is a very important day. I'd take all day. What did we do that Thanksgiving one? We did 5 hours. I don't know if we're in there, Joey or Tony, but we did a 5-hour telecast on Thanksgiving. But there's a couple things I just want to say, because I want to keep hearing some of the stories. Is if you are listening and you want in on the auction today, we're having a private online auction just like this. Public is not invited, and we'll be auctioning off the 50th anniversary board that is right here behind me. And it's all good. It's got Tom Morey's signature and the 178 BE in his universal language up there. And also it's got Deb Caldwell, Pete Naya, and JP Patterson's signatures, who was with Tom on the making of that, and the letter of authenticity, which has all the template sizes and everything. So we've got a couple bidders coming in to give their bids on that. And if you think you'd like to do that, the bids have started at $5,000. We know that this board is worth way more than that in the historical sense, because it sits right in a line with the original board. Tom designed this with the team, so it would be like that one, and encased with the metal plaque and everything. So if you
that board is going to last over 100 years, I guarantee.
Yeah. Oh, it's a historical board.
I mean, we're at 52 years with.
I know with that
the
other
iron
one.
And the
I know.
Original board.
Paper.
Yeah, this one's gonna go.
It's deteriorating, but yeah.
This is something you can grandchildren. I mean, this is an investment almost. It's
So there's the original board that Tom ever made And then there's this one board
One
that
board.
Tom made for 50-year anniversary. It's the one and only.
It's the sister board. It's the holy grail of bodyboards because you could get out and ride this if you wanted. If you wanted to take it out of its encasement, you could ride it. There's so much to it that I almost felt, not right putting it over on the collectors group because they, they're looking for deals on eBay and stuff like that. This board doesn't sit in that same lineup. This board has the breadth of Tom. Tom was right over these guys when they were building it. He had the quality control on this board. Marsha and I had the good fortune of being there that day. Tom had just come off a 2-hour interview with Canal in Brazil, and he was still standing up and observing this thing. He really wanted it to be a special board. Celebrating.
And that's why they only made one, right?
Only one. Mm-hmm.
I can say I've
he
been
wanted it to be the one.
The one. This is the one. Whoever owns it, we will probably want to come visit them someday and touch and feel it because it's very special. It's a very special board. And at 5, we're going to do that. So I just wanted to tell everybody we're at 4:21 right now, and we're still recording some of this family and friends conversation. So I don't want to give up on this good stuff, especially. Sol and Tep. I know Tony and Joey are in California, so I can call them up anytime. But you guys, it's so special. And of course, Marsha's living here in California too. But you guys, I'd like to just glean anything I can out of you. I don't know what else to ask, but
I want to share though that
okay.
the board itself, is something that Dad made, Tom Morey made, but he made a lot of surfboards.
Right.
And I've been to a lot of these vintage shows. We've seen boards go for 30 grand, like Dick Brewer boards, and they've been in competitions, or they were written by a certain person. And a lot of Dad's boards have gone for 5,000. Just one of a board that nobody else could get their hands on because a lot of boards have gone out of circulation, if you will. Only after a while did people say, wow, this is a one of a kind thing. I got to hold on to it. And so there's been a lot of boards of Tom's. And, looking back at the first board, the first boogie board, you would think it would have quite a tag that you could put on there. I don't want to put any number on it, but the board behind you truly is something that he put a lot of heart into. We have a lot of boards that were R&D boards, but this was a collaborative board that, again, it's extinguished. It's very different in the way it's showing an asymmetrical rail, one rail, and the other rail being different, just as the original board was, and the fusing together of all these techniques of bodyboard making, all crafted from its day one into a finished product. Bodyboards have not really changed very much. They've stuck to a very nice hand crafted profile. So it is really a one of a kind, and it definitely holds its value.
Oh yeah. Oh no, this board will appreciate it. There's no way that there's just no way that it can depreciate. So it really almost is not a collector that would want it, but what do you call it? An investor, someone that really wants to invest in the history of the boogie would be that person. But thank you.
But there is a story that I think was fun to hear from Teppy about going from, what was it, with Ripper?
Oh, right. I mean, back in the day when we were in Hawaii, there was an early boogie contest back in Huntington Beach. Technically a pro contest, invitational only. And so Jack Lindholm and I were the 2 representatives from Hawaii. So I flew with Jack from Hawaii back to Carlsbad. We stayed with Bobby Zabad, I think. Jack had never been on an airplane. That was his first airplane ride. And when we got to the beach to go in the water at the contest, the waves at Huntington Beach were like 1 foot and windblown, and the water was brown and mucky, and Jack was freaked out. The water was brown. He couldn't see the bottom. He couldn't see the fish. He didn't like that feeling at all. It was all too weird and eerie. the waves were so small that neither Jack or I advanced out of our first heat. The two invited Hawaiians were done early in the morning.
Wow.
And but it was just a funny experience bringing him to the dark, murky water of California, and he did not like that. On the other hand, I've brought friends from California to Hawaii, and they did not like being able to see the bottom and see the fish swimming around underneath. So I guess it depends what you were raised on. You know?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so neat.
Well, something about Jack Lindholm and Dad. He was in that early group.
Mm-hmm.
And Dad had such a wonderful affinity with Jack. Jack was very, very smart. And but he was very shy.
And quiet.
Very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom would go and try to see him when we were living on Oahu there for a while. And they would do things together and talk together. And I remember Jack was graduating from high school. And Tom got a hold of him and he said, Jack, I want to come to your graduation.
Wow.
Oh.
And Jack was going, oh, I don't know, you know. And Tom made sure that he went to Jack's graduation. Wow. We had this big, beautiful lei and all that stuff. But Jack is like so many people. Everyone has a special quality, no matter who you are. There's if everything else looks sort of rugged or not so good, there's one part of you that's like a diamond in the rough and is the most beautiful aspect of you. And Jack had those qualities in different ways than other people. And most people just didn't see it. And when we look at each other, remember that each of us has a shining star someplace in our personality or whatever it is. But
glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we're about 30 minutes away from the auction, and we're at over 2 hours on the recording. So I wanted to just cap it with any special, it's Tom Morey Day today. If it's all about Tom, his invention, his family, early employees like us and early writers like Tony. This is very, very special.
How about your story there, Gibbs, of going Waimea Bay with Tom?
Yeah. You missed it. He said it earlier, but let's hear it again.
Oh, wait, Patty,
I found some pictures.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh, let's see him.
And Patty,
we're talking about Tom, and your mom was really given a very good history lesson. But one of the things I wanted to say, I lived with your family in Kona for a couple of months. They just opened their home to me, which was incredible and just awesome. And when I lived there, I saw so many things. Tom was it was like living with Thomas Edison. He had so many ideas and so many concepts in his head, like your mom's explaining. But also what I found was there was two people. He had the ideas, and she would take those ideas and she would say, Tom, why don't you kind of go in this direction? And they worked as a team. It was incredible.
Mm-hmm. And 50 years too, by the way. 50,
yeah.
51?
But yeah, Tom just had so many things. He couldn't focus on things. He just had, it was constantly things coming up in his mind of different ideas and different concepts. And your mom would help focus him on what was the right direction to go a lot of times. It was awesome.
Yeah, didn't you stay with us too in the Kona?
I came over one summer.
Yeah, I stayed at the house there in Kona for 2 months when it was when when Sky learned to walk.
Oh, wow.
I lived there, and Sky was crawling when I first moved there, and within a couple of weeks, he went from crawling and holding on to a chair and trying to get to another chair and falling to then he got little islands where he would go from one spot to the other, and then he got to where he was just walking in a matter of a week or two, and that was one of the cool experiences I had with you guys for sure.
Yeah.
And look at him now.
Patty, Joe Evans wants to say some things and is trying to get in. Can you send him the proper link?
I can't. I just tried and it didn't post. So you'll have to just real quickly write it off of that ticker that's going along the bottom. It's streamyard.com, and then just write those numbers in real quick, or letters PDV, those if you can. If not, we're about ready to, we're about ready to tie it up anyway to go into the auction here in a moment. But would Soul and Tep be able to come into the auction by any chance? Would you in about 20 minutes?
Probably so. Yeah, we could probably make that.
Because I think that would be real important to the collector to know some of that real early. And the reason I'm not asking everybody and it's private is because we did want it. Some of them want to be anonymous. So, let's see what Joe says here. Hold on a second. Joe says, how about this? I love you guys. Thanks for everything and all you've done. Well, yeah, look at you too.
Right.
Exactly. Joe was one of the early riders.
Thank you, Joe. I love you.
Awesome.
We had a Tip. I think you'd already left for Hawaii, but Tony Prince up there and Joey came to many of them, and myself and this Joe Evans that just typed. We were kind of this collection of, well, we call ourselves the OGs now because we were like the first teams, the first contests and all that. And we all stayed, well, the beauty of it is we've all stayed friends all these years and never, ever an ounce of drama, feuding, or, when you get in a group, there's always one.
Right.
There's not one in this group, is there, Tony?
No.
There's
and it was funny because I hadn't seen Joey Gibbs for a number of years, and then we went and played golf out in Palm Springs and went riding, and then afterwards he goes, oh my gosh, it's like a day didn't even go by, and to just take off and just have full day of stoke, huh, Joey?
Yep.
That's how it is with me and Joe Evans when we get together. It's like it's like it doesn't even matter if time went by because we just pick up the baton where it left off and just go with another 110% stoke, huh?
We all went down for Mike Lambresi's return to the water a couple months ago, and another reunion. We have these reunions about once a year, and Tom and Marcia came to one of our little OG reunions. Remember on the beach about 5 years ago, and that was really special to have our little OG meeting and have Tom Morey show up. That was pretty cool.
Super cool.
At the I noticed that at the Mike Lambresi event, how we all still love I mean, we love each other. I mean, a boogie board brought all walks of life kind of thing, together, and we all still just, you can't separate us.
Yeah.
Right. And we're just living the stoke for decades.
That's
for
right.
Decades. It's like a common thread of stoke between just tons of people.
And I told myself I wasn't going to get emotional because I know it was a year ago, and I remember the year like it was yesterday. But this is a special, special day, and I've had the good fortune of having Marcia stay with me over the last year, and get closer to Marcia and do a lot of things with Marcia and stuff. So, and Soul came and stayed with me for a while, and it's been easy in some aspects, but when you get all the people together like this, it's like, God, where's Tom? But he's looking at us, and I know. Like when I was making that video yesterday about the board, I just could feel him, just the words coming out, it's like, I had no script or anything. It was just, pure stoke.
Yeah, I really appreciate you putting this day together because of course, so there's many different things that you can put together, like the boogie board beginning and so forth. But this is a good appreciation about all of his
It was.
undertakings throughout his years, because as you know, even like we're talking about this early Hawaii day after the boogie boards started getting going,
Yeah.
we kind of broke away and we were back in the islands, and there was this shop near Airport Road that had a mysterious room upstairs where all these perpetual magnets were running around in circles and swim fins were being made.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I hung out there a lot, and there was a bunch of foam downstairs. One day I came into the shop and there was a house within the shop. I was like, oh my God. And I walked in and there was like a shower and there were stairs and there were all these square pieces of foam that Clancy, that was staying there and I guess living there, had built himself a studio within, you know, he made himself a foam house. And by this time, Dad was already making chairs that were easy chairs and a rowboat with a glass. We had the glass bottom boat there.
The big, long, solid foam boat that we all got
and
on.
And the surfboard. He had like a giant stand-up surfboard too that we'd all go on.
Long or 18 feet long, really. And baby Matt was on it with us, and Clark Cedarval, who was a champion swimmer. We were coming into Lyman's, and the boat was starting to really rock and stuff. And so Clark and I got the baby and took the baby, who was Matt, who was probably just, 4 months old or 5 months old, to shore. And what a life. I
mean, really, if Dad was here, he would be doing something with flight for sure. It'd be about aeronautics, but there was an event there at the airport where he had a chance to fly ultralight. And when it came back down, it was abrupt and he broke his leg.
It broke a foot, I think.
Broke a foot, yeah. And okay, that's really great. I'll just stick it out here on the land and work on my projects.
And then he made an Ultra wing, like an Ultra glide kite, and he put a motor on it and tried to, fly it out at the airport. But today when I was getting ready to come and get in the car, a hawk came over the house and flew around the house.
Yep.
So it was easy peasy getting here.
Yep.
Bumper to bumper traffic.
Oh gosh. Well, so most of you know that today's Tom Morey Day. We're talking about Tom Morey, and we're winding it up here with a very special guest, Tony Prince, who was Johnny on the scene years ago. First rep for Morey Boogies out of San Clemente, and then had team captain for the adults boogie board team. Mm-hmm. And Joey Gibbs, also known as Waimea Gibbs, got great stories of his early days out of Waimea. And of course, Tep Paul, who we have not seen in the lineup of these reunions. We're so grateful to hear your story today, Tep, and your inspiration on the logo and all your years in Hawaii. And
we want to thank his mom, Momi.
And
we're hoping she could show up here, but she was on her way.
Oh, she is. Okay. Well, she can come into our next one here. And then, of course, Saul, having him here and making an effort to come, because I know you're under everyone's under a lot of stuff right now. So this is a special moment in time. Thank you all that have been watching and making comments. That was really, really nice of you. And is there any last words anybody wants to say before I stop the recording?
I got one thing. When Tony was saying that Bobby Zabad and I beat him at the contest.
Oh, yeah?
The only reason why we were competing was because Tom, so they had the contest, and Tom said, I don't want anybody that worked at Morey Boogie to be in this contest. And Bobby and I said, then we quit.
Oh, wow.
And so the only way we could get in the contest was we threatened to quit Morey Boogie so we could at least compete. Because Tom wanted it to be fair to everybody.
Otherwise I would have got first place.
Yeah, that's right.
Tom buckled under the pressure.
Tom buckled. I can't believe it.
Oh my gosh, they were gonna walk out on the company.
Yeah, PZ and I were like, that's it. If we can't compete, we quit.
we'll get hired again the day after the contest. But
Yeah,
right
you
now
will.
we're not working for
Yeah.
it.
All
We'll hire you
right,
back.
guys.
That's hilarious, Joey.
Mhm. Marcia has the last word today. Go ahead, Marcia.
I just wanted to say that Tom really enjoyed that the women got involved.
Very much.
And women today that are surfers and boogiers, bodyboarders, they're amazing.
Mhm.
And
Oh.
I love the fact that they were encouraged by all of the men that were involved in this process.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Very
Well,
much.
once again, historical day, historical meeting with all of you, and we're going to go on and give this beautiful board for the 50th anniversary a home tonight. And thank you all so much, Tony, for taking the time, Joey, for taking the time. Chad going out with his
Thank
face. Put it up on the screen. We'll go
Surf
out.
Morey for good feeling. Yes.
Thank you, Craig Labuse.
Yes. Craig
Yeah, no kidding.
on that. Surf Morey for a good feeling. Absolutely. Okay, you guys. Thank
All
you.
right.
And we'll talk to you in a minute.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha.